Okay, so as you can tell from these GIFs or GIFs, however you pronounce them, kids are very expressive and they have big personalities. So this makes them a really good subject for psychologists to study, developing brains and emergent personalities. So this brings me to my paper, The Co-Development of Preschoolers' Temperament Traits and Social Play Networks over the entire school year. And judging from the title, you can see that researchers basically studied the growth of personalities in preschoolers over an entire school year, and then they looked at how those personalities affected kids' relationships. So some important terminology to go over before we talk about the paper. So one is temperament traits, and these are just personality traits, but usually having a social connotation. Two is positive emotionality, PE, and this is defined in the paper as the variations in the propensity towards sociability and positive emotions. But really just think of this as like general positivity in relationships such as activity, sociability, and impulsivity in the child. And so, 3, negative emotionality, otherwise known as NE. This is defined in the paper as the frequency and intensity of negative affect. This is just a general sadness, anger, fear in the child. And so 4, effortful control. You can also think of this as emotional control or social control within the child. And so this is defined in the paper as the automatic and strategic regulation of attention and behavior in concert with one's goals and environmental demands. You can just think of these as social skills, and some examples of as engagement, initiative, compliance, and attentional control. So any questions on those before we move forward? Nope? Okay. So why this study? Why is it important? So first of all, we're looking at the fact if are children's personalities dynamic at this younger age? This is really the time when personalities start to develop within children, and so scientists are interested in looking at how they change. And so, especially in a new preschool setting, they want to see how a new environment affects these kids in their development of personalities. And so this is in turn the nature versus nurture debate, and so they're obviously focusing on the nurture aspect. And then this is also related to the adaptive trait theory, where personalities are developed through environmental means. So any questions on those? Nope? Okay. So the experimental questions. So 1, is there evidence of a change in children's personality traits over the course of the school year? 2, do children's initial temperament traits predict the formation of social play relationships over time? And 3, do playmates' temperament traits influence children's temperament traits over time? Okay, so a general overview of the study. So between October 2012 and May 2014, the kids were observed on a weekly basis, and they had 4 different waves, which is like October through November, December through January, March through April, and then I think just May. And so they were observed in the morning and afternoon of scheduled observation days, and they followed a randomly ordered list for how they observed kids. There were a total of 11,309 observations throughout this study. Okay, so some study and participants. This study was conducted at a Michigan State University preschool. This preschool enrolls 3 to 4-year-old children, and it's usually consisting of researchers' kids or just people who go to Michigan State's kids, like professors, things like that. And so each classroom includes 3 types of students: half morning students, half day afternoon students, and full day students. And so this study was conducted in the 3-year-old classroom and the 4-year-old classroom, and there were 25 children in the 3-year-old classroom. There are 28 children in the 4-year-old classroom. Okay, so this is just detailing some of the participant demographics. As you can tell, there's a roughly 50-50 split with male and female, which is good, but it was predominantly white, so a little skewed with the ethnicity, but with gender it is okay. Okay, so the first part of the experiment dealt with the social network observations. And so they followed a randomly ordered list, and they coded a child's predominant behavior, like observing them throughout the list for 10 seconds, and these behaviors might have included solitary play, unoccupied behavior, teacher-oriented behavior, onlooking behavior, parallel play, and rough play. And so usually they would make a composite of the first, whatever wave they were on at the end of the wave, they would make a composite of all the behaviors, and they had like numbers for these. And then they would put it into this equation to figure out someone's frequency of playing with someone else, and then they made this like cool chart afterwards. But yeah, it's a very statistic-heavy process of how they created these numbers. So any questions on this? Nope. Okay. So yeah, before we look at the graph that they made, some important definitions are density. This is the overall tendency to form social play relationships. Transitive triads, which is the tendency for playmates of playmates to become playmates over time, kind of confusing. The popularity, and this is the tendency of children with many playmates to obtain more playmates over time. Okay, so these are just some descriptive statistics. I will show you a visual of this in just a second. As you can see, it's pretty numbers heavy and it's hard to interpret. So this is the visual of what that basically is. Okay, and so these two sociograms, as they call them, they detail the friendships that every kid made. So every number is a kid, and every line is a friendship. And so the kids with the darker green, those are the kids with the higher initial positive emotionality, and the kids with the medium-ish green, those are the kids with like the middle positive emotionality, and then the lighter color is the kids with the lowest initial positive emotionality. And so something to gain from these two charts is that originally kids with like the middle percent and the top percent in PE, those were the kids that were making friends in the beginning. But as time moved on, kids who had less positive emotionality to start with, they were able to make more friends as the year went on. So any questions on this? Yeah.
So when determining like how many friends a child had, did they ask the children or did they just kind of observe and determine?
No, they observed and determined. Yeah, any other question?
Okay, so you point to like one of the most popular kids and one of the least popular kids. Like, is it the number of lines that's connecting them?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the number of
You've got
lines.
a lot of friends, you've got a lot of friends.
Yeah. And it's basically determined how far you are in a circle too. So yeah. Alright, yeah, any other questions? Okay. So the second part of the experiment measured the PE and EC of each children, which again is positive emotionality and emotional or affective control. And so they followed a randomly ordered list and they observed each kid for 1 minute. And so they looked for things like engagement, activity level, anticipatory positive effect, initiative, sociability, compliance, attentional control, and impulsivity. And so a 4-point scale was used to measure these aforementioned traits, and that's 0 to 3. And so affective traits, which are just generally more broad things, I guess, were all rated using a 5-point scale, and these were based on bodily, facial, and vocal expressions. Okay, and so since they expected negative emotionality to occur less frequently and just kids to be less negative, they basically just scanned through 15% of the observational period. They looked for kids spotting any, like expressing any, just like anger, sadness, fear, anything like that, and they were observed for 1 minute. So like an example is if a kid was crying, they went over and then observed that kid for another minute. Things like that. So if someone stole someone else's toy and then they started like getting mad, they started fighting, they went over, observed them for a minute, and then they took points down. Okay, and so these are the results of that. Again, pretty statistics heavy, a lot of numbers, it's very difficult to understand, but I have some visuals and I'll just further explain what this means. So for positive emotionality, over time, children were more likely to develop social play relationships with kids who had a similar level of positive emotionality to them in the beginning. So as you can see, okay, yeah, so number 2, and then preschoolers' own level of PE tend to become more similar to the levels of PE of their social play partners over time. So if you can look at this figure, picture, whatever, you can see before, if we're going by the green in the other graph, the kids with higher positive emotionality would, I guess, make kids with less positive emotionality gain more over time. And that's a key concept moving forward. So any questions on that? Nope. Yeah. And so affective control, more or less the same result, but there was no evidence of a selection effect of EC for children to choose people with similar levels of EC. And so, as I said before, their own levels of EC tend to become more similar to levels of EC of their play partners, and again, the same picture applies. So, but negative emotionality, they found something very different. Children did not prefer to play with people that exhibited similar levels of any to their own levels. And so play partners' levels of any did not influence children over time, which is more or less a good thing. And any predicted children's overall likelihood of forming social play relationships over time. And this is usually in a negative way, as they hindered their negative emotions hindered stable play relationships, and they were just viewed as less desirable to play with. And so, as you can see, that old model does not work. Okay, so any questions with those three results? Nope. Okay. And so some more general results. So children prefer to play with members of their own sex. And children's personality traits are directly affected / modified by who they're friends with. So these are two very new, I guess, things that they found out. And so any children have difficulty in social environments. This is a very good thing to know moving forward. So they can get like teacher help, outside help, counseling, things like that. And so this reinforces the fact that children's personalities are dynamic at the early age of 3 to 5, and this supports the adaptive trait theory and the nurture side of the nature versus nurture debate. So any questions with these results?
Sorry, I missed the beginning. What was the age range that they were?
3 to 4.
3 to 4.
There was a separate 3-year-old classroom and a separate 4-year-old classroom.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they just lumped, but they grouped the data together for
Yeah,
the
pretty much.
age range.
Alright, and so some study limitations and future directions. It was overall a small sample size because they just used 2 classes as I did before. And again, it was a very white heavy study. And so is demographics important? Is it important to have equal amounts of every ethnicity? And so the role of teachers, I didn't really talk about this, but can they help kids with high NE? Can they help foster relationships between kids who are like paired together for a group, things like that? And they said they want to do this in high school kids too. So yeah, thank you. Okay, any questions? Nope, okay, thank you.